Welcome to episode 1 to Strive 365. This is Justin Arnold. I will be your host here, and this is the inaugural episode, the first episode in case you missed this. And what is Strive 365? Well, we are here to help guide you to live a better life, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. We're going to talk about all things on how you could daily strive, and just a little how this came to be. So a good friend of mine, Scott Fitzgerald, maybe I said that wrong before this episode. We're playing around with some words in Western New York. But anyways, that's for another day. Like Charlotte, here around here, it should be Charlotte. But anyways, I digress. The point is, laughing, that's striving. But we're going to be talking about all these things. But this was essentially a gift. And today, if all things go well, January 19th, this episode should be out, is my birthday. I am 42 years old on January 19th, which should be today when the episode comes out. And so I'm a giving, serving, loving human being, and I wanted to gift these episodes to you. And again, if all things go right, we'll have 3 episodes out today, January 19th. Correct, Scott?
That's correct.
So there's Scott's voice, this beautiful man. And I'll let you kind of tell, before I go on here, what we're going to talk about today, how this came to be.
Yes. Thank you, Justin. I'm glad that you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too.
when I turned 49 last year in 2021, I decided that I wanted to use, because we have the podcast here, a podcast studio here at Rockbox, and I wanted to utilize that little toy that I have, my own podcast studio, to make a podcast that would serve 2 purposes. One, to boost my self-confidence, to get me more focused on the goals I wanted to accomplish physically, emotionally, and all that kind of stuff, which is why it's called Strive 365. It's not, a mystery on why it's called that. But I decided, I was like, all right, I'm going to take the last year of my 40s and I'm going to convert myself into the person that I want to be when I'm 50. That didn't happen. The show didn't get started. I never got around to it. I got the logo. I've had this logo for the show for over a year, but it never happened. And as I was creeping up, I'm going to be 50 next month. So I was like, well, all right, fine. Then I'll do it when I turn 50, and that's when I'll start. And so I started to get the ball rolling by trying to think of who would be a great host for this show, who has experience in all of these elements that I think people need to talk about. And Justin Arnold's name flashed into my head.
Man,
I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy.
A sweet man. That's such a...
Justin was on my other podcast, Positive Blatherings, talking about his book. Hold up the book. Hold up the book.
Huge humbling compliment, by the way.
Purpose Through Pain.
Yeah, this is his signed copy. And you can have your very own signed copy as well today for the low, low price of whatever it is on Amazon at this current time. I've got hardcover, paperback, and digital. Audio may be in the works since I am in an audio studio, but we'll talk about that later. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all right. We do have to talk about your audiobook.
Yes.
So I decided that Justin would be good for this, and I reached out and said, hey, what do you think about hosting a podcast? And I'll be the producer, and maybe I'll jump on here and there and say hi or whatever, but you could do whatever you want with it, but this is my goal for what I wanted. And we said, yeah, Justin was like, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to do that. And I'm 100% confident that Justin will take this idea and run with it as far as it, and probably further than I ever thought.
Wow. Man. So that goes right into really what we're going to talk about. So he set a goal, right? You all heard that. He set a goal, and the goal didn't happen. And it's the beginning of the year, so we should talk about that because a lot of people set health goals, weight loss goals, New Year's resolutions. And this might be a little controversial, and I'll say this in a couple different ways. But I'm going to say don't set goals if they don't work for you. Now, I'm not saying don't set goals. I do set them, but be flexible in them. And I'm going to go and say set more processes and systems and objectives and just enjoy the journey. And that's what we're going to dive into today. But he might say, why not set goals? And some of my clients are like, Justin, you ask me to set goals all the time. And I do, but I also say to people, we need to be flexible. Maybe we set a date, but with the weight loss, let's just go down that road, for example. We set a goal by age 50, or he set a goal by age 50. I hear it. I've been doing this for the training, the health and wellness, we'll call it what you will at this point, because I'm a man of many hats, for almost 20 years. And through that, a constant thing that I hear, I want to be a certain weight, a certain size, a certain something by this date because of this. Like, for example, I want to lose 20 pounds in 30 days for this wedding. The goal is to look a certain way, aesthetically pleasing, and feel a certain way by a certain date. And I will say, you hear 20 pounds in 30 days, that's unrealistic and it's not healthy, but I'm not going to really dive down that right now. The point is, we set that goal and maybe we do achieve it, cool, but maybe we don't. And then we totally quit. Things like health need to be a continual goal. When we set a goal of that, it's about the process. So we hit that. But if you want to be healthy for that wedding, great, but there's got to be deeper reasons. For example, somebody that said something like that to me once, the real reason, when we got to the deep-rooted reason and how did we get there, I kept asking why. So why do you want to get ready for this wedding? What's the real reason? And we got to it. They saw their parents at debilitating health at a very early age. And they saw their health declining, and they didn't want to be like that. So the real reason was not only to live longer, but to live a long, great life. That's not losing 20 pounds in 30 days. That's striving every single day and showing up. So the objective is to live healthy and live your best possible life, doing something every day until the day that, you do pass, that you do die. And that's the point. And that's not just for yourself. Yes, there can be some selfish reasons, and there should be. A lot of things you can do, but also to have kids, maybe to be able to not just be around your grandchildren, but to actually play and crawl on the ground. Yes, it is possible, and to do these things. So that's the point. We want to if we do set goals, just be flexible with them and have that objective, because goals tend to be a fixed way. It's far in the future, right? And then somehow if we reach that goal, it'll validate us and it'll create success. But as you heard Scott earlier, he did not reach that. So it can be defeating. We want to focus on the systems and the processes. So the journey along the way, we really want to show up daily. And say we fall off that cuff, say we miss a day, then we get back up the next day. Or say we didn't get our morning workout, we get our night workout. But that's maybe another episode. But definitely, the earlier you get movement in, if workout and fitness and health and all those things is your goal, even if it's 5 minutes in the morning, that's definitely something we do.
I'm keeping tabs for every time you say that's another episode.
Oh, really?
So we can go back and do all those episodes.
Cool. Yeah. Because I could probably make an episode out of these, and we'll probably touch more on some of these things.
I think you should. Yeah. I think that's the point. It's like you keep coming up with these ideas and offshoots of what you're thinking of, and it's like, yes. So
I could literally talk about morning routines for 45 minutes, and it will be exciting. Not to get off the cuff here, but as a birthday gift yesterday, I got a cold tub outside that regulates its temperature, and I jumped in it this morning, and it felt amazing. 5 minutes meditating in 50-degree water. Yes, it's not the 30s, and we can talk about what temperatures and things like that. A lot of people think you got to have ice. I'll tell you what, man, this energy, clarity, mental, I could talk about all day. Cold baths could be in an episode. But, for example, I wrote a best-selling book, and I could be like, man, writing that best-selling book could be somebody's goal. The amount of people since I wrote my best-selling book, and I'm working on a second one, is, I could never do that, or I have that goal, but I just don't know where to start, or these things. And it's defeating because it seems so far away. I am a dude that literally, even for the show, taking notes, if you would have looked at my notes, just looked like chaos. And how I started my book, but it started to formulate together because I enjoyed the process. My objective, back to what I said earlier, and my objective since probably the age of 12 has been, I just want to help people live a better life. I want to give people tools and ways and ideas and processes and systems to live better, including this podcast. And this book was one of those things. I didn't set a timeline on it. Now, timelines can help if you're get distracted easy, like me sometimes, or if you fall off the cuff, like me sometimes. But the point is, be flexible and don't beat yourself up. Again, enjoy the process. So I enjoyed the process, setting no real deadline. Now, my publisher set a deadline, but I was kind of like, when it gets out, it gets out. Same thing with this book. It's my book. I decide when it gets out. And so there's also having those decisions. Remember that who's in control of whatever the situation is. Maybe another episode. I'm kidding. But like the point is, like, I enjoyed the process so much that what seems so impossible, that seems so hard, this guy that's been diagnosed with ADHD at a young age, don't do medication. For me, it didn't work. For some, I know it does. It limited my creativity. Who has 3 children, who has a wife, who has a lot of obstacles in the way, found a way not only to publish, not only to write and publish a book in less than a year. I did it, and it became a bestseller on about 9 lists on Amazon. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying it because I enjoyed the process. I had systems. I maybe had like mini objectives along the way, like I'm going to work on this today. I'm going to work on this today. This second book, similar. I work from the outside in, just to give you an example. There's a lot of failures, by the way, like especially if you are wanting to be a writer. I would highly recommend some kind of version of a publishing company because you have about 10 or 20 or 100 different eyes looking at your book, which makes it great if you're bad at grammar, like me. And so the point is you have that in your back pocket. But, man, they want to take out entire chapters, paragraphs, failures, like feeling defeated at times, like loving something. You got to fall in love with the process, maybe not even the object. So like with the weight loss, you might, there's people that fall in love so much that they want to be a weight and their goal is to be like this weight, and then they gain weight and it's not actually fat. For example, I got a client that deals with like different GI issues, let's just put it at that. And so some of theirs isn't just fat. It's probably not. It's more like inflammation and bloating and constipation and things like that. And then they beat themselves up thinking, oh man, that piece of cake, that one piece of cake in a 7-day span is not going to make you gain 10 pounds. Like, I'm just going to give you that. Like, enjoy life along the way. You don't have to sit here and eat chicken salads. And, you know, again, just set the objective that is deep. Set a deep objective and enjoy the systems and processes. So along the way, you know, there's all these days and weeks. So say we do set a goal. So like he set this goal and man, that stuff crept up on him. And it was probably something that, and I wrote it right here. What about all the days and the weeks and the months that it takes to get to these goals? And you're not there yet. And then you seem fired because the scale is going up, or it feels farther and farther away as you get closer to the date that you set. Why? If you set daily or weekly tasks and things to do. And maybe like with this book, I'll go back to that again because I'm working on it. The publisher said, I want you to do 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. And I said, I don't work that way. I'll see what I can do. And I shut down for like an entire week because it went against a lot of things. It made it hard and it made it difficult, and I felt overwhelmed. And I was like, I'm going to go back to the Justin way of doing things. So find the way that works for you that gives you productivity. So I started just making notes, and then I started putting pieces of the puzzle together. I actually got 5 and 10 done and 7 and this. And she read over 5. She's like, wow, that's wonderful. So she went along with what worked with me, and now we have 10 chapters. And there's going to be some editing along the way, but at the end of the day, like, I went in the process and the systems that work with me. And so my objectives, my every day were just, I'm going to get 2 to 3 or whatever the day was. Maybe I'll get 5 hours of writing. The thing was, I would set little mini objectives or goals for the week. Maybe the goal is to finish this book per se. But the things would be, I want to write 10 hours this week, or I want to write 5 hours a week. Looking my week ahead, oh my God, I got a traveling tournament with my daughter at hockey. I've got all these clients. I got to record a podcast. Ooh, what's realistic? Okay, I can commit to 3 hours total of the week. And I feel pretty awesome. But if I don't meet that 3, well, I look back and I check, was it me or was it life or did I overjump it? And that's why goals can be defeating, and we got to look at the processes along the way. And also it can be defeating, especially in today's technology. Like, we're constantly hearing of success stories and the Steve Jobs of the world, and we don't necessarily hear about the journey, the failures, the hardship. I'm not shamelessly, I'm proudly bring this, because the book title, if you can see this on video, is Purpose Through Pain. Like, if you want to talk about journey, I go on in that book about the pain, the struggles, the failures, literally the trials and the tribulations. And for those that have read it, you know what I'm talking about. Now, for those that have had a hard life, you probably will relate. For those that have a harder life, trust me, there's people that have had harder lives than me. This isn't like, oh, look how bad my life was. This is, here's some stuff that happened, and here's how I worked through it and found purpose in it. And it's more than just that. But the point is, it's like I put it out there that men, to be real men, it's okay to be vulnerable. In fact, you should, because you could teach a lot of lessons, especially to your children. And so that's why I brought that. But it's the hard things, it's the failures, it's the falling down and getting back up, it's the finding the purpose in it. And that's how I've been able to do it and enjoy the process and the objective. I told you earlier about 12, my objective was to live a good life, be joyful, provide that joy and happiness, and help others to live a life. I didn't know that I was going to be a gym owner or trainer. I didn't know I was going to be the lead trainer of the Y. I didn't know I was going to marry this incredibly, I hope you're listening, Alexis, incredibly beautiful, voluptuous, amazing, successful, she is all those things though, amazing woman that was going to birth 3 of my children and have these 3 children that do incredible things, and then being very active and playful in their lives. But all this has led to where we're at today, all because it was about the journey and the process along the way. Some other goals that you might be writing down are goals like cleaning the dishes or your room, or cleaning like your dishes are dirty, the room's dirty. And so little goals, I'm going to clean the dishes. And then maybe you don't get to the dishes. I'm going to clean my room. Maybe you don't get to it. Or maybe you get to it and then your husband and then your kids mess it all up. It's defeating. And so then you may want to restructure your goals or teach and train other people to do those jobs so they can help you out. Or maybe it's just focusing on the process. Or maybe it's even changing your perspective, knowing that this is the way it is currently in your season. And man, I get to rather than I have to, right? It's simple verbiage like that we can always talk about in these episodes. Verbiage is very key. You're going to hear me talk about words, changing it. On some of these episodes coming up, I ask a guest in these first couple episodes to change one word. And then we talk about it in another episode, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk to others, even when it comes to our goals and our life and our journey. So again, when we focus on the process, it's just about showing up. It's about striving. You see what I did there? Every single day. It's about it's continual. It's about being, get this, it's about being rather than achieving. It's about being present. You know, we're going to talk about all things on this episode. So we're going to be talking about, how we can strive as fathers. We're going to be talking about how we can strive with our health. We're going to be talking, like I said, about words. It's about being present. We're going to talk about how we can strive with our significant others and our children. And that's one thing I just mentioned, like showing up, being present. We're going to be talking about meditation, most likely. We're going to be talking about cold baths, I'm sure. So just keep that in mind as we're doing these things, as we're going along these episodes. If you have ideas, we definitely want to hear them. But the whole back to the goals is it's a continual refinement, and I touched on that. A continual refinement of the journey and the process. So the idea is to find and improve that process. Like I said, with the dishes or whatever there might be. If you're falling off the wheel with health, if you're like, man, I set a goal to be this way and I'm not getting there, I give up. Or we could say, man, I set a goal and the process was to work out for 30 minutes at night and I just can't seem to find the time. And you've heard things like make the time. Yeah, but that gets defeating, right? Like, man, they're always telling me make time and I just don't have the time. It could be the striving 365, waking up 10 minutes earlier. Or maybe instead of whatever distraction or thing you got going on, maybe you find yourself distracted on the phone. We all do. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Maybe you're getting distracted while listening to the episode right now and forgot what I said and you got to rewind it and then you just lost more time in your day. Was that you? Hello? But seriously, it happens. I like if you're watching episodes or TV and then you're scrolling on your phone, we're all guilty of it. I'm not going to act like some high and mighty guy that doesn't do it sometimes too. But it's being aware, and how are you going to strive the rest of the day to be present in front of your kids, in front of your wife or husband? How are we going to be present in our health? So maybe it is. Maybe it's waking up 1 minute earlier to do 1 minute of burpees or squats. That, if you didn't do any movement the day before and you did 1 minute of movement, that is striving. Maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're not sleeping enough. Maybe it's sleeping in a few extra minutes, but if you're already doing that, maybe it's just going to bed early 30 minutes. Maybe it's 30 minutes or 15 minutes of getting rid of everything but you, yourself, and I, and a dark room. Or red light, which we could, again, talk about in an episode as well. For those that don't know, I've got red lights in my house. If you see my Instagram stories, my kids have red lights. People have asked about it. I wear red glasses at night. Again, another thing we could always talk about, but you don't have to do all these things. It's always just finding little things to refine and improve so you can strive. Because I really believe that we are all on this planet to serve, live a great life with challenges, with obstacles. Life is not unicorns and rainbows and ice cream and sunshine all the time. I wish it was, but it can be within moments where we find the joy, the purpose in these situations, and find ways to fix and refine and better our lives in many different ways. So I want you to learn to fall in love with the process, the outcomes, the objectives, and guess what? The results will naturally appear. So if you're falling in love with it, and I get to rather than I have to work out. Like, it's all about that language again. Man, I have to work out because I'm fat and I'm overweight and my husband won't have sex with me or whatever. Like, the point is, you get to move. You have a body. You are alive. And if you just show up for yourself and just move for 5 minutes or 10 or 1, you're striving. And then maybe add a minute. And then you start to work things together. And there's plenty of free stuff. There's people you can pay like me, but there's also free stuff out there too, including this podcast that we're going to bring to you for free and talk about things like that. So just fall in love with the process of showing up for yourself and whatever it might be. If let's give some more examples here. If it's you're not getting enough time with your kids, maybe it's getting home a little earlier. Maybe it's you never get to read the book to the kid because of time or sports or activities. Maybe it is staying up a few minutes extra. Maybe you're tired. Sometimes it's about, as parents, we just got to suck it up. I'll tell you this, one thing I've learned as parents, our number one job is to coach. We're all coaches, whether we like it or not, and we're here to coach our children. Why? To live a better life than we had. We want to see them live better lives. And it's not about giving them everything. It's about giving them opportunity possibly, but it's also about coaching. It's about teaching them struggle. It's about teaching them hard things. It's about showing up for them. And it's about playing too. Guess what? We'll probably talk about this in deeper episode 2. So write this one down, Scott. But like, play as adults. We'll talk about the benefits of it, because the point is, like, one thing I say is like, man, I hear a lot of defeating language. Again, back to that language thing when it comes to children and sports, and it can be stressful. Trust me, I get it. But the one thing I love about being a parent, I get to be a kid all over again. I get to go sledding. You know, I've heard growing up, I used to hear, I'm going off on a tangent, but I guess this is the point of the episode 1 to give you an idea what you're in for. But the point, like, I used to hear as a kid from my parents, from my grandparents, and this isn't throwing them under the bus. This is just truth and fact. And the point is, I would hear energy is wasted on the children. I don't believe that statement one bit. I believe it's given to the children as a gift to us. If we really have the mindset around us as children as gifts, we can have, the opportunity to coach them to a better life mentally, especially in today's world, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, whatever that looks like to you. And that's the point. And then we get to be a kid again. We can play. We can go sledding. And if you're saying, well, my knee, my hip, my back, well, there you go. You've got some things to work on to be able to do the things that you want to do. And whether it was a past hockey or injury, or whether it was a birth thing, like, for example, for those that don't know me that well, I found out this summer that I don't like to call it birth defect or deformity, because we're all born different. So I hate that term. So you won't hear me say that. But I was born different. I found out I'm 41 now, 42 when this podcast comes out. And it took me 41 years to find out that my lumbar spine was not fully formed. It sits on the right side of my hip. My hip's higher, my left hip's lower. And it's different. And I just noticed that because I started having, to the point that there was a day where I couldn't even get out of bed, and I had the most excruciating pain since having meningitis. Yes, I've had meningitis and I survived, but almost didn't. So maybe we'll talk more on that. But the point is, like, we all have things, and we all have, or we're born certain ways, in different ways and things like that. And there are going to be limitations, but that doesn't mean we can't do things. It might take longer. It might be a different route. Again, why we got to enjoy the process. And I found through different ways of doing this, I've been able to still get back up, move again. And same for you. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever you feel like your limitations are, you can live limitlessly. It might take longer. Again, it might be a different journey. It might be a different pathway. But just, again, we'll go back to falling in love with the process, and their goals and the results will naturally appear. Goals have their place, as I like to say. I said earlier, I'm not one of these that says, don't set goals, but be flexible with them. but the process and the objective should be the focus. You got to be flexible. Again, this is Justin. This is Strive 365. There is so much we're going to cover. I really hope you join in on this. I hope you really share with others, because even if you don't find a nugget in this, there's plenty of people that will. And we really just, I mean, this is free content. I'm passionate about just helping everybody live a better life, being kinder, certain words. I believe it starts with us. And then, of course, I could go into where if we can start with our younger children and really coach them, there's the other thing on how they talk to themselves, how they're interacting, what they're doing, and how we can change. For example, if you don't know, there's some research of like the development of kids under the age of 5 and how impactful. I think I read recently there at the under age of 5, like how important that is, why parents need to be present in that, things we'll talk about. But there are I think it's over 1 million neural connections a second, and the fastest the brain will ever develop it under the age of 5. But if you're distracted, if you're not playing peekaboo and games with these kids, if you're not on the ground with them, you're setting up another vicious cycle, another generation that is going to struggle mentally, physically, and emotionally, and then spiritually from striving. And it starts with you. It starts with you striving today, finding that one thing. I'm not asking you to do 10 different things. I'm not asking you to like grow your business and your wife, fix that, kids, get your health in order, and do all this now. I'm giving you tips to do things. And maybe it's 1 minute. Definitely just choose one thing and listen to these episodes and share with those that you know can help. And then if you have children, it's super important, like I just said, especially if you have children under the age of 5, and I'll even say under the age of 7. I talk about a little bit in this book, the traumatic, the abuse things that I went through under the age of 7 and how that affected me and how I had to almost rewire my brain, and I continue. And it's not like once it's done, it's done. It's not like once I got my brain fixed, I'm good. It's just like weight loss. It's not like once I lost the weight, I never have to work out again. It's a continual daily process. It might seem hard, it might seem daunting, but that's why you got to enjoy the process. You got to fall in love, and you got to use words like I get to. I get to show up for my kids. I get to show up for my wife. I get to show up for myself. I get to strive every day, and I'm doing the best damn job that I can. If you don't think you are, let us know. We'd love to help. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to talk to you. If you are striving, we'd love to hear from you. We love to talk, and we love to bring you to the world, because you never know how your story might help other people to live a better life, to strive 365, and to give them tips and tools to help themselves and those around you. Well, we hope you tune in. We got a lot of stuff, if you can't tell. I'm really excited about this. Thank you again, Scott, for making this possible.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And if you'd like to email, I created an email, which you don't know, but I'm letting you know now. It's strive365podcast@gmail.com. So it's strive365podcast@gmail.com. You can email the show, and if you have any suggestions or if you want to just say hi.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Strive 365. Hope you got some nuggets out of this episode. And again, always like, share, comment, download, and bring it to the world. It's one small gift you can give to the world, to people out there, to help them live that better life. Thank you very much.